147 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So, because it is our last episode before Christmas, we thought we would just, have a little chat about what our plans are. So, what are your plans for Christmas?
I guess last weekend, we went out for a brunch with my family. And then this week, I did my Christmas with the kids. Because I'm going to Labrador this year.
Yes.
So we're flying up. I'm going to be there for 9-ish days.
It's a lot of days.
So we'll have there's very few flights to choose from. But we'll have a fun episode next week from Labrador and see how the sound is in that one. Because who knows? So spending it with Jeff's family. And then when I come home, I'll probably do some more stuff with my fam in the in-between time. Between Christmas and New Year's. Yeah. What about you?
Well, like every year, we do a big old family thing at my house. So everybody is slated to come over like normal, except for my one cousin. So I feel like I've mentioned them before. I have twin cousins. They're 20. Normally they come with their boyfriends and everything, and it's all a big hullabaloo. But this year, she is going to India for Christmas.
Wow.
With her boyfriend, because that's where he's from, and he hasn't been home in a really long time. So, they're going to go to India.
It's different.
It is very different. And
that is super cool, though.
It is super cool. So we'll be minus them, which is going to be really weird.
Yeah.
Other than that, everyone's going to come over to my house and sleep, and it's all going to be real fun. And then on Sunday, not Sunday, sorry. I keep, for some reason, in my brain, Christmas Day always is Sunday.
Yeah, this year it's a Wednesday.
I don't know why, but it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the Wednesday, instead of cooking Christmas dinner and eating it here, we're going to go to my mom's house up the street, because my mom just moved. So she is now, I think I drove once and it was 3.5 minutes.
Perfect.
So, so I like that she is very close.
Yeah.
So normally she'll bring all of her tools. Her and my dad will bring them down to my house and cook supper here. But now we'll just mosey on over to their house for supper. So
it's walking distance if you have a couple too many drinks.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't want to walk from my house to their house because it's all uphill and up a real steep hill.
But the way back won't be so bad.
Would be fine, yeah.
Just roll it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really it. You and I are doing some weird paint thing.
Yeah, at a brewery.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what we're gonna actually paint.
I thought there was a picture.
There was a picture, but it's the same one as they had last time, and I'm like, do they just always do the same thing? I don't know.
Oh, I get it.
Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah.
Some fun times ahead.
Yes, we love Christmas. Well, the holiday season. I'm just really excited. I finished my course. I'm done with school for a few weeks. And provided I pass this course, that's only 2 left.
That is so exciting.
I'm stoked.
You're so close.
Yes.
It's wild.
It is wild. And I'm dancing in my boots already. I can't wait to just not have to deal with school anymore.
Yeah.
And I'll never have to do it again.
Very true.
Like, apart from deal with school, like, with what I have now. But, like, I don't consider that the same thing.
Yeah. No.
But, yeah. So, yeah. So, those are our Christmas plans.
Yeah. No Christmas Eve weddings for us.
For a second, I was like, what are you talking about? And then I remembered, oh, yes, this book.
The book.
They are apparently getting married on Christmas Eve. So that'll be fun for them.
I wouldn't have a Christmas Eve wedding anyway because it's my birthday and that would be weird.
No. So I assume you're going to celebrate your birthday up in Labrador.
Yeah, well, Jeff's birthday is the 22nd and then Tibbs Eve is the 23rd.
No one else
and then
knows what Tibbs Eve is.
It's a Newfoundland and Labrador thing.
Yeah, we celebrate the 23rd by drinking.
Yeah. I think it's so that you're not as hungover on actual Christmas Day. I think that's the point of it. It's like you're hungover on Christmas Eve instead of hungover on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I do think that's probably it.
But yeah, so it's going to be 3 full-on days of too much slush, which is the best alcoholic drink from Newfoundland.
To be fair,
even though
my aunt made 2 buckets of it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. I made one the other night, but I made it after having a few drinks. And I can't 100% remember if I put the water in it. So it might be even stronger than normal. So we'll see.
I always like the creamsicle ones, like the ones with the whipping cream in them.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be like creamsicle, like orange creamsicle flavor. I just like the creamy ones.
Yeah, I make one with pineapple juice, the orange juice frozen concentrate, lemon juice, and vodka. And then, a bit of water. And it says to put sugar in it, but I just skip that because there's so much sugar in the orange juice and stuff anyway. But anyway, it's delicious. But yeah, we'll get into it. Just a heads up, this is not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy. So it's week 3 of The Nightmare Before Kissmas, and we're doing chapters 12 to 16. Last week, they kept on with their charade of both trying to marry Iris, both Coal, the Christmas prince, and Hex, the Prince of Halloween, except for they did a really poor job and just spent a whole bunch of time together instead. And, very obvious to anybody with eyeballs that they were falling for each other, not Iris. They went skating and Cole literally had his arms around Hex the entire time to the point his dad, aka Santa Claus, came over and was like, you need to stop touching him, please.
Can you please go over to your betrothed?
Yeah. You're supposed to be in love with this person. Why are you holding him? So, it's going great for them. Mm-hmm. And then his dad was like, is he putting things into your head about blackmail being bad? Because Santa is blackmailing a whole bunch of other holidays. Yeah. It's a lot of it, really. And Chris, who is like the younger Claus boy, was like, what are you talking about? Information. What are you talking about doing wrong things? And Cole was just kind of like, Dad's blackmailing people. Peace. I'm going to talk to Iris. And didn't really get into it. And him and Iris had a good old chat. And she's kind of disillusioned about falling in love and happily ever after. But obviously, we all also know that Chris is in love with her as well. So, I kind of get the feeling that the next book is going to be about them falling in love, maybe.
I don't understand that, though, because if it's about, if it involves, the Shamrock.
Yeah.
The Prince of St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah.
I don't understand what he has to do. Because I think I read the back of the book, like, digitally.
Oh, really?
Like, I've read a synopsis.
Oh, okay. I haven't read anything yet.
And I think it was about Chris, but I think the, like, love interest is the Shamrock guy.
Oh, really? Interesting. From the back of the book, I guess. Yeah.
One moment.
I guess it's hard to know.
One moment,
until
please.
It comes out.
It's enemies to lovers in the sexy and delightful holiday mashup that pairs the Spare Prince of Christmas with the Crown Prince of St. Patrick's Day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm kind of glad for that because, like, clearly him and Iris aren't, like, I don't know. If it was going to happen, you'd think it would have happened kind of thing.
Well, I guess Chris is in love with her, but it does not seem reciprocal, so.
Yeah. Because everyone's like, oh, she just doesn't know. And it's like, after
I'm
all,
sure she knows.
Has to realize. So, yeah. It's interesting because I just assumed it was like building it up to be about them.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of glad that it's not.
Yeah, and his name is like Lachlan, which is Crown Prince Lachlan Patrick.
Makes sense. I like that the last name is Patrick, which makes Saint Patrick. I get, but still.
Yeah.
Fun times. Yeah. So this week, we start that Coal basically tells Chris about the blackmail on their sleigh ride back because there's no one with them. And now they are at supper and they're kind of wondering and talking about if they actually think that like Halloween has a better setup than they do. Cause like they don't really know for sure, but like it seems like we could guess. Cole asks Chris if he remembers learning about Christmas as kids, and Chris like tells a story that his dad told them about like in I guess the Victorian era they used to give each other books. So one Christmas he like asked their dad for this same kind of book and like even wrote a letter and everything, which like it's his dad. You don't usually write him a letter even though he is Santa. And his dad actually gave it to him and he was kind of surprised and he still has it to this day and he's kind of like, I can't believe he gave a child, a 9-year-old, a antique book. But like Cole kind of thinks that that happened after their mother after their mother left. So like their father was still able to do some good after that and like wasn't immediately just like a bad guy. So I guess they notice that Hex is leaving and Chris is like, go time, and then goes over and distracts their dad and Cole takes off. But he doesn't like immediately run after Hex because he doesn't want to be super creepy. So he gives him a bit of time and then like goes to the guest wing and finds a door that has a wreath on it, but it has jack-o'-lanterns and like cats. So he's like, this has to be Hex's door. He's nervous and he's like debating leaving, but then Chris texts him and tells him not to be a chicken. So he does end up knocking. He does obviously worry that Hex is going to just assume that he's trying to hook up, which is like apparently not his intention.
No?
Right? So like Hex opens the door and he just says like he needs to talk to him, and Hex asks if something is wrong, and Cole's just like, no, but I'd want to talk to you privately. And you're like, this very much sounds like a hookup. So yeah, Hex basically is just like, again, and this is kind of a theme for him, but he tells Cole not to risk his responsibilities for him. You're like, why do you keep bringing this up? So they go inside and they sit, and Cole tells Hex that his father told him like what Christmas is doing, and Hex is just surprised that he even told him, but like he knows exactly why Hex is here kind of thing, and he's just like says it so that they're like on the same page. Then he explains to Hex, which I think is a bit wild. He's just like, my dad's blackmailing everybody. It's not just you. And it's like, why doesn't Hex just take this back to Halloween and say, if he's going to tell on us, then we'll tell everyone he's blackmailing all of these holidays. They're not going to stay quiet about it because he's like stealing their joy.
Yeah.
I almost said grace because I was listening to a Supernatural podcast earlier. But yeah. So then he says he wants to know, obviously, how Halloween is set up with their allies and like if it's different, if they're not blackmailing each other. So I guess Hex kind of explains it. He says, like, Hex says that Halloween is better and they joke a bit about it. And then he offers to adopt Coal. And Coal just says, yes, Daddy. And I wanted to throw my book. I was like, this is the most embarrassing thing anyone's ever said.
I love it. Although at the same time, it's very, like, it is super embarrassing considering they haven't really developed that relationship or that dynamic at all.
No. And also that his daddy is Santa. His actual father.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just kind of funny. I would have died if I was in that situation, though. I would have just jumped out a window. I don't think I would have been able to do anything else. But so it's even worse than that because he says, yes, Daddy. And then he says no. And then he makes finger guns at Hex. And then he just turns around and looks away because he's just like, oh my God, what the fuck did I do? Which is relatable. Then he, I guess, turns around and says that Halloween sounds like they have a collaborative who support each other. And Hex says that they have like a dozen holidays, work together, and they pool their joy and then take equal shares of the joy, which is interesting. And then each holiday kind of reaches a different part of the world, so they can work together and not really like fight each other because they're each doing different things. And they're not trying to like world dominate like it seems like Christmas's whole plan is. Hex then says that like they reached out to Christmas with hope that they weren't as bad as they had heard, but Christmas asked them for a percentage of joy with little return, and like obviously they didn't want to do that. And then they were kind of afraid that if their group, like their collective, found out about it, like if one holiday got pulled into Christmas's like orbit, the collaborative was afraid that it would just like start taking them all away, and so they might kick Halloween out for it. Even though I kind of feel like Halloween is probably the most popular of the like autumnal holidays, so
maybe Thanksgiving.
But I think Thanksgiving is part of this because this is America. Thanksgiving is in November, which I know is still the fall, but it's like closer to Christmas. Is it the fall? Yeah, December.
It's in November.
Winter starts in... When does winter start?
December 21st.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know, but they already said that Thanksgiving was under Christmas's...
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, then I'd love to know who's in this autumn collective.
Yeah. And I want to know the other ones that are in the Halloween one. I'm like, No, I meant I want to know the other ones that are in the Christmas one, because they only mentioned Thanksgiving and I think New Year's.
Hanukkah?
But like, well, yeah, you'd assume it'd be like Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, like... Yeah.
Maybe I would have assumed it'd be the other Day because it's wintry. It's in February.
Yeah. I just assumed that it would be like all of the holidays that happen at the exact same time.
Mm.
Because those are the ones that kind of like, it would make sense. But I don't know, like, other than Halloween and Dias de la Muerte. I can never say it.
Dia de los Muertos.
Best. Yeah, listen, it's not in front of me. But, so, other than those two, though, I can't really think of another... But I don't know. I just don't know all the holidays, obviously. But yeah. So yeah, Halloween's afraid they're gonna get kicked out, and Hex says that this competition is actually putting strain on the alliance as it is, because like if Halloween does win, quote unquote, they're not able to, but if they did, then they would end up more powerful because they would be attached to Easter, and like where does that leave their collective kind of thing. So it is still putting strain on them, and also him being so close to Christmas. So Hex is just like, but like that's not really the point. Like what your father's doing to us isn't really, I don't know, it's not your job to fix it, is kind of what he says to Cole. Even though it's like, he is a part of Christmas. I'm not surprised that he wants to fix what Christmas is doing. Obviously, he gets a bit more attached here, maybe, but still, I do kind of understand it. But Hex is very, like, adamant that Halloween's reputation is, like, his job. And Cole is just like, no, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to understand. And then he asks what his collective would think if Hex was here helping the Christmas Prince put together their own collective of all of the holidays that his dad is blackmailing. And if they could like stop that and then like foster the different holidays instead of monopolizing them so that Christmas can become global. So that's kind of why I was like, it sounds like it is the like Hanukkahs, Kwanzaa's, other celebrations that are at the same time, because
yes.
like it's just weird that those aren't the ones that are mentioned in the book, and it just seems kind of like, it seems odd to be like Thanksgiving and New Year's, because like New Year's can get their own joy in the same places that Christmas would get joy. So it just confuses me the way it's worded, but all good.
Do we ever find out like do we ever find this out? Like, you've read this book.
I don't think we get any of their, like, no, I don't think so. But I also can't 100% remember. Like, I can't really spoil it. We meet some people from other holidays, but I don't know if we figure out exactly where they're from.
Okay.
If that's helpful. So Cole basically says, like, if all of the holidays his dad is blackmailing rally together, his dad would have less leverage and they'd be able to overtake it. Especially since apparently they're getting, like, over 2/3 of their joy from them. So, like, if they got together on their own without Cole's help, it feels like they could just fuck over Christmas.
Yes, probably could.
They haven't. Hex is just like, won't your dad be opposed to this? But Cole plans to hide it from him. And he just thinks that this is going to fix everything. So it'll mean that Hex will be okay because he'll be here to help Cole. Iris can choose neither of them because they're scheming behind Easter's back. And then Easter could join the collective too if it's to their benefit, like afterwards kind of thing. So he really thinks that this is like going to solve every aspect that is an issue right now. So, you know, obviously that's going to happen. Then Cole kind of realizes he's put Hex in an awkward position again. Because like I said earlier, like Hex could immediately go, like, tell on Christmas. They have blackmail information now.
Yep.
And if he doesn't want to help him, he knows that Cole is planning a coup against the reigning Santa. And then Cole is just like, says that he's so toxic. And he kind of goes to walk away, but Hex takes his wrist and says he's glad he told him. And he had originally planned to get this through this charade, but now, like, it's so much more than he wanted it to be. And Cole is nothing like he thought, and he's honorable. And Hex says he does want to help. And he and Halloween are prepared to face backlash, and he doesn't need protection, which is a theme that Cole should probably listen to. Cole says he can't help himself around Hex, and Hex is like, what else can't you help yourself with? And he says he has an insufferable need to find out what it's like to witness every shade of joy on Hex's face. And Hex is kind of like surprised by that, but then he's like, wait, what about Iris? And he says, like, he likes Iris, like, as a friend, as a person, and doesn't want to hurt her. And Coal is just like, hey, you were jealous when you saw us together. And then Coal admits that he was jealous too when Hex gave her flowers. And he says to Hex that, like, Iris knows that Coal is jealous of her, not of Hex. So, like, it's just sad for Iris, like we kind of said last week.
Yeah.
But
she just wants to be loved.
She's given up on love, and now there's two guys that falling for each other around her. Sad. Hex basically tells Coal that he only likes him because he's the mysterious man who kissed him in the alley. But Coal says it started like that, but then he realized that Hex is brave and quick-witted and challenging and entrancing, and the fantasy was great, but the reality is so much better. Which is sweet, but, you know, cheesy. And then Hex says, kiss me. And Coal kisses the corner of his mouth and then, like, loosens his Christmassy tie, which is cute, and kisses his neck. And Hex is caught by surprise and moans, and then he, like, tries to control himself afterwards, but Coal is like, no fucking way. And he thinks he knows what he sounds like now, so he, like, pulls Hex's hair down, and I guess he has, like, long hair, which I don't think I really realized until this moment. I feel like but his hair was up.
Maybe, like, who are we talking about? We're talking about Hex, right?
Yeah,
he's got, like, I feel like it's like a little bit above the shoulders.
I feel like it was in something because it sounds like he's, like, pulling it out of a ponytail holder at this point.
We know I love
so
a man
it could
bun.
still be, it could still be, like, shoulder, and then, like, you can get it, especially if you have some shaved underneath or something. But yeah. And oh yeah, Coal asks, how much do you want? And Hex says, rather badly it seems, but Coal says, no, sweetheart, how far do you want to go? And Hex says he doesn't know, and he says he hasn't done this much, and he's kind of rambling a bit, and he says, well, I haven't done it in a while. And Coal talks a lot in this preamble of them making out, but Coal tells him wanting this is, like, what matters. So, like, the moment that it borders on uncomfortable, he needs to say, and Hex agrees, and Coal asks where he should start. And he kisses him and says, like, Hex kisses Coal and says, start here, and then touches his neck and then his shoulder and then, like, his arms, and Coal kind of, like, takes this as a map. So Coal kisses his neck, and he tells Hex he tastes so good, and he says he wants to make him feel good. And then he unbuttons his shirt and kisses his collarbone and, like, puts his thigh between his legs, and he feels him, and it's everything. And Hex says he is making him feel good, and Hex asks if it's good for Coal, and he's like, God, yes. But he says he's going back to his room now because he wants to take his time with him, and he wants to be a gentleman. So he steps back, and he sees, like, a mark on Hex's neck, and then he immediately is just like, nope, and he, like, dives back in and kisses him again. But then he's like, okay, no, I'm gonna leave. So he backs up and, like, won't even look at him as he walks out of the door and says goodnight. We go to the group chat of Chris, Iris, and Coal, and Chris and Iris are, like, just messaging each other about how Coal is not answering them after he went to see Hex last night, and Chris is just like, did you fuck the Halloween prince? And Iris is like, you need to delete that. You can't have that in writing. Which is just,
especially,
like,
on, like, a Christmas device. They could be mom.
Yeah. Like, that can be on the cloud. And he Coal answers then and says that he didn't. And Iris just asks him for breakfast after that. And then Iris is just like, we're actually just going to delete this entire thread because it's a PR disaster. Which is fair. So Coal gets up then and goes to the kitchen. And he's like, nope, screw them. I'm not getting them breakfast. But he grabs one of everything. And the sous chef, Lacey, asks if he's hungry this morning. And he says it's also for Chris and Iris. But then Renee brings over like hot water and tea and puts it on the tray. And Coal just like goes to Hex's room with all this stuff. And we're like, so it isn't. People do notice this.
So
like they aren't.
That is like the fun. Like I don't think this is ever addressed. And
No.
it really, like, I wish it was. Like, I wish there was just some offhand comment that Renee makes to be like, have that tea go down. Like, I want her to be acknowledged by the fact that, like, she don't miss a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want the acknowledgement, and I'm not getting it, and I'm really sad about it.
Yeah, and he does realize, like, in the next scene, oh shit, she knows something. But yeah, I wish that there was more. I wish, like, the next day he showed up and she was like, how did that go? Or, like, do you need tea again? Anything would be good.
Yeah.
So Hex answers his door and he's in, like, a sleeveless robe and it's the most skin that Coal has seen of him. And he's, like, just staring at him because Hex is so stupid hot. Hex lets him in then and comments on the amount of food, but Cole's just like, I didn't know what you'd want, and I also didn't bring any cocoa because, like, he noticed that Hex doesn't like it. And Hex is just kind of surprised that he's noticed that, but he says that, like, the cocoa here isn't good. And he reaches for the tea, so Coal actually makes one for him, and he, like, in his head, he wonders if Lacey and Renee knew. And it's like, obviously they fucking knew. They gave you tea.
I also love that he's like, your hot cocoa sucks. And, like,
yeah.
Can I be honest and say that if we're talking the difference between, like, Mexican hot chocolate and, like, North American hot chocolate, and I know Mexico is part of North America, don't come after me, but, like, US/Canadian hot chocolate, like, it is way, like, they're right. Are they making it with water? Is it a powder that they mix with water? Because if so, bleh. I don't even like that.
Yeah. No, me neither. We're also a bit snobby because we worked at a coffee.
We did. We worked
for a bajillion
Yeah,
years.
we did. So we worked at the coffee shop, and at the coffee shop, they didn't make hot chocolate with water. We made it with milk. Yeah. So, yes, you're right. We're a little bit biased, but still, like, Mexican hot chocolate is, like, glorified chocolate ganache. It's, like, just, like, thick, and it's delicious. And you dip churros in it, and it's so good. However, not at all the same. So can you imagine being used to that and then getting this, like, watery shit from a powder?
Yeah, especially if you're, like, missing home and, like, what the fuck is this garbage? Yeah. So yeah, basically Hex says all of those things about it. He says it's watery, and he says in Mexico he'll, like, make him a real one where it's, like, frothy and thick and decadent, which is exactly what you just said. But he says, and it's spicy too if he can handle the heat. And Coal is just like, I can handle it. So Hex magics some candy into his hand, and it's like an extra spicy, I assume, chocolate. And Coal takes it to try, and it's like a plunger. And I'm assuming this candy exists, but I really want to know what it is. I wonder if it would come up if I Google it. I could have Googled it before now, but I didn't. I'm going to have to look, see if something on Reddit comes up with this, because I want to know what kind of candy this is. But yeah, so Coal obviously takes it and puts some on his tongue, and at first he's okay, but then he is absolutely not, and everything is burning. And Hex is just like, his 9-year-old brothers eat this all the time. And, like, just kind of laughs at Cole, which is, like...
You're a wimp and can't
Cole's...
handle spice.
Yeah. But it's also, like, Cole's love language is 100% people laughing at him, so he's fine with it. And he even kind of plays it up a bit, but I still want to try the candy. And then Hex says that Cole is looking at him like that again. And Cole leans in and, like, drags his lips from his shoulder to his temple. And Cole wants to, like, hear Hex talk more, but he wants to kiss him even more than that, so they do. Then Cole aims them for the couch, but he knocks over his tea, so then he just picks Hex up, and Hex wraps his legs around him. And, like, he brings him over to the couch that way. And he pulls Cole's hair to kiss him better, and then somebody knocks on the door. Like, of course. And it's Ren, and she, like, yells out at Hex that she has his itinerary. And Hex is just, like, still being held, so he's like, let me down. And then he's like, you need to hide. So Cole goes towards the bathroom, but then he's like, no, you need to take the tray. So Cole grabs the tray, and then Hex says, damn it. And Cole is like, I haven't heard you curse before. And Hex is just like, Halloween's magic doesn't really like it when he curses. And Ren is yelling out, like, are you okay? But Cole just, like, stops to learn more. And I'm like, you could do this after. What are you doing? Hex tries to push him into the bathroom, but Cole is, like, taller. So he eventually just says that, like, cursing is a big deal for Halloween, and that includes bad words. So then he just says shit, and a full jack-o'-lantern just, like, falls from the sky, and he catches it.
It's possibly one of the funniest things that I have ever read in a book.
It's my favorite part of this book, that he, like, when he swears, it's just, like, Halloween decorations. It's my favorite. and Cole just laughs and says that was the greatest thing he's ever seen, and I'm like, yes. But, like, imagine if you're in school in, like, Mexico, in, like, a university in Mexico, and you just accidentally swear. I'd be fucked.
Yeah, like, how do you cover that up? Like, how would you cover up that magic when you're, like, in a room full of people that don't know about magic?
Yeah. This seems way more difficult than anything else. So yeah, he says it's the greatest thing he's ever seen, and then kisses Hex, and then he asks if Hex can actually curse anybody, but Hex is like, no. Like, obviously
Even
not.
though his
He's
name
like,
is
you can't
Hex.
hurt people. Yeah. But the whole point, I guess, is another thing we learn about the magic system here is, like, their magic comes from joy, so you can't hurt people with it. And it's like, yes, fine.
Also, I feel like Halloween should get a pass. Halloween...
You can scare people, but you can't hurt
I feel
them.
like he
It's like in the haunted houses where they can't touch you, but they're fucking scary.
Oh my god, I can't do haunted houses.
I cannot
They
either.
freak me out. And then sometimes when I don't like people in masks. Like, masks freak me out. There was a girl today at school. We had, like, dress-up day. So all the grade 7s had to be reindeer. All the grade 8s had to be something else. And then all the grade 9s had to be Grinches.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, wear green for Grinches and stuff. So I had a student came into my room to ask me something, and she brought a friend that I don't teach, that I don't know, that was dressed up in a Grinch costume with, you know, the whole face. They had, like, a little, like, full, like, bodysuit on, and it had, like, a little pooch belly. Like, it was like a full-on, like, outfit. And I literally said to them, I'm like, I'm really sorry, but you're giving me the creeps.
They probably loved that,
and,
though.
like, afterwards, when I was I spoke to her after the fact, without the mask on, and I was like, I don't know what it is, but like mascots and like those mascot costumes with the like they really give me the heebie-jeebies. So she just said, "Oh," and then she put the mask back up.
Of course she did.
So like, all those like masks and stuff like that really creep me out. So like haunted houses, no.
You know the like giant Easter bunny that people get pictures with.
Oh
sometimes?
my God, how?
I was it one year.
You were it.
I was the bunny.
Why don't I remember this?
Because it was for my mom's work. She works at like a
right
kids camp, so they have an Easter kids camp. I think I might have. It was probably before I worked at Second Cup. I think I was literally in like high school, and they were like, "We need somebody."
So you were like, "Okay,
like, okay." And it's the creepiest. Like the pictures, I was like, "How does anyone like these? They're so creepy." But yeah, maybe we should try a haunted house next year. We'll forget about that before next year.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
Yep. We will. Nobody remind us of that.
It'd be funny if you could like podcast it or something, but I actually think it would just be terrified screams and then running.
And like also sometimes I think I have gone to haunted house before, and I think my technique has been to insult the people.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe that wouldn't be the best podcast, just me cursing and me like, "You're such a effer. You're the worst.
Yeah, that's fair.
You're so mean. Why are you doing this to me?" And then when they chase you, because they can chase you, and
they just can't touch you.
And even like if my kids start chasing me around the house, I'm like, ah! Like it brings out this like unnatural fear. I can't handle it.
That's
so
fair.
Like, no one chase me, please.
Jesus, please. Oh my God, fun times. Yeah. So, Cole does hide, and Hex goes and gets his itinerary, which like kind of reminds both of them that they have a job to do. So when he comes back in, like the mood kind of changes because they realize like they have roles to play here. And Cole just says he can fix this, and Hex just like asks what he can do to help. And Cole thinks of like all he needs to do to like make everything better, I guess. But he thinks like he needs to contact all of the holidays for a winter collective. He needs to check what people think of Christmas, like the actual people of the North Pole. And he also needs to start figuring out how Christmas actually works. Because, like, if he does usurp his dad, he can't not know things. Because then, like, you can't. Although, like, the department heads all know everything, so.
But at the same time, like, is he trying to usurp his father right now? Like, is that what this is gonna be?
Well, like, how else would it work? Because, like, if he's, like, I don't know.
Like, I sort of just thought it was more like he's trying to convince his dad of a better way. More so than trying to steal his holiday.
Yeah. But, like, the way he goes about it, I'm like, this doesn't really make sense either. But, yeah, we'll get there. So, he basically just tells Hex to, like, keep being himself because he's becoming infatuated with him. Like, obviously. And Hex just says that Cole is making it impossible for them to get through the events now because he's just going to want to kiss him. So Cole actually takes one of Hex's rings off of his finger, and it's got like a skull on it, so he puts it on his finger, and he says that every time he wants to touch Hex, he'll touch the ring. And then later in the night, he'll sneak to his room and do everything he thought of to Hex. And then Hex is like, well, what about me? And Cole's like, well, you can touch some of the Christmas decor around here. And he's like, you want me to fondle a tree when I'm thinking about you? But Cole is just like, don't make it weird. And he says he was trying to be cute. And Hex is like, well, I just meant I wanted your phone number so we could text.
I love that they still don't have each other's phone numbers.
Yeah, they do get them at this point. So Cole then like throws Hex over his shoulder and like puts him on the couch, and he says like they have an hour before brunch, and Cole says so the hour is his, and Hex agrees. And then Hex like pushes Cole over so that he can straddle him, and Cole just like touches his face, and Hex asks what he wants, and Cole says, "You're letting me touch you," and he's content with whatever Hex wants. Which is just kind of interesting. Like, I know there's a huge consent thing here that we're getting, of like Cole is very into consent, like intensely
very into consent.
But it almost seems like he also has like it seems like he doesn't think he deserves anything. Is like another step in it. Because he's like, it doesn't matter what I want. I only, or like, I don't know. I don't know if it's that he doesn't think he deserves it, or if he just like, that's how he gives love, I guess, maybe. But it's very intense how much he's just like, no, nothing for me. Then Cole kind of says like his reputation might make him seem worse than he is. And maybe this is part of it. But he says he's only actually been with 4 people, and some were for like mutual satisfaction, and he thinks like his roommate, and then others were just doomed from the start, and he thinks of Lily. And Hex asks if they're gonna like, if they're what is this? Is this just mutual satisfaction? And Cole thinks that like this is so much different, and he's just like in awe of Hex. And Cole says he's happy with whatever Hex wants, whether that's kissing or lying together or nothing. And Hex says he doesn't want nothing, but he isn't good at this. And he kind of says like he's only been with one person and they didn't talk so much beforehand. And Cole just says like he deserves to like know what's happening and agree to it all. And he asks if Hex is uncomfortable with like all of the talking. And he says he's just confused, and he's wondering why Cole isn't just like ripping off his clothes. So Cole asks if that's what he wants. And like Cole is a bit mad at the first person that Hex was with, even though we don't really have a lot of information yet. But he's mad that he's mad because he feels like Hex is very insecure about all of this, and he blames that on that person. Which like we do get more information on, and like I agree, but he could just be feeling a bit insecure anyway.
I mean, they barely know
like,
each other,
have to
be honest.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna get to know each other very well in a second. So Hex says that he wants to touch Cole, so Cole just is like, okay. So they kiss, and then Hex reaches down and touches him through his pajamas. And he asks if this is all right. And Cole says, you have the answer in the palm of your hand. So then Cole, like, palms Hex as well and, like, pulls his hair. And I will say, I really like the way that this author writes. Like, I like the writing in this book.
Yeah.
Like, the description and stuff. Like,
yeah, I think she does, like... and this is coming from someone like in my section, there's like full on sex scene, but like, yeah, maybe it's just what you and I are reading, but I find that usually when there's a same sex scene, it's like the way that it's written is like either glorified or glossed over. But like it's never just described the same way that male female sex scenes, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they just are. And I find a lot of times like either male and male or female and female, whatever, I just find that those sex scenes are usually like they go from one extreme to another. They're either really really raunchy to the point of like extremity, or they're just like completely glossed over and like not really described at all. So I find that she's literally, this author, she is doing a really good job of, this is a romance novel with a sex scene in it, and it is
Yeah.
like, I don't know, she's writing as a romance author with a sex scene in it. It's just new and different because same-sex sex scenes are usually not written with just this sort of matter-of-factness, maybe.
Yeah. I do feel like it's a bit like, and it's kind of the way that Cole is every time he's around Hex, is he's like hemorrhaging fireworks and like saying all these things, and I'm like,
he is like
like the imagery is kind of like, yeah, and I think that's also just how he's written. But I don't know, it'd be interesting to be in someone else's head, or to even read another book of hers, because like I think this is her first adult book. I think her other ones were YA. So yeah. But yeah, I like the writing of the sex scenes, I'll say then. So Cole tells Hex that he's beautiful and it's destructive how much he wants him. And like Cole just like watches Hex and like pulls his hair harder, and they both end up coming. Not just from the hair pulling, they're giving each other
although they do like the hair pulling.
Yes, can't blame him. Hex looks around and then just says he expected ice, which would be hilarious, and I would have liked it. And I kind of think that the author threw this in because she thought about maybe doing it, which I would have loved. But like, how do you have sex with a normal if that you wouldn't be able to unless you told them?
By the way, my cum is ice.
Yeah.
My body temperature is too cold.
I would not want that inside of me. So yeah, they tease each other a bit about that, and then they clean themselves up, and like Hex comes back from the bathroom and it's like a bit awkward. So Cole reaches for him, and like he thinks to himself, he puts him like in his lap, which is now where he belongs, kind of thing. And Hex says they should get going, but Cole says, let me kiss you for a little while. So they do. It's cute.
It is cute.
And then we kind of just jump scenes, and we're assuming that that all ended well. And that they showed up on time and weren't both late together. Or maybe they were, and that's why everyone knows. So Chris and Cole are together, and they have like the list of the holidays that they need to contact, all the winter holidays. And they're kind of debating what they want to say in the letters. And Cole wonders if the holidays will actually take them seriously. And their plan at the moment is to just send a innocent invite to the Christmas Eve ball with some vague mentions of a new agreement. And then they are thinking like, when and if all these holidays come, they'll discuss a new agreement and get rid of the blackmail, and hopefully they'll be able to include Easter too. But like, that's their big plan. That's it. And I'm like, where's their dad in this plan? So I don't really know. So right now they're just like, the next step is to get some mailing addresses for the holidays. So Cole decides that he's going to go to the route planning department, and then he'll be able to do two things at once. He'll be able to find the addresses and also learn a bit about how Christmas runs.
Which again, he really wants to do.
He does. And like, we get that he knows people and he seems to be good at this. So it's like, why wasn't he doing this before? Cole tells Chris they'll meet in an hour, and Chris is like, but I need more time. But it's only a week and a half until Christmas Eve. So
they don't have time.
They either need to figure this shit out, or he's about to marry Iris. And like, he thinks of how much he feels for Hex right now. So he's like, I can't imagine marrying Iris. It's not fair to any of the three of us. Which is true. And I'm like, we're getting to the end of this book. We need to figure something out soon. So on his way to the route planning department, he actually sees Iris and Hex walking outside, and he thinks he opted out of this event because his dad did, so he was gonna like scheme with Chris. But now he's like feeling jealous of Iris and wants to be out there because it is Christmas. Like he wants to be out there with Hex. But that makes him wonder if like the Autumn Collective would be against him and Hex being together, and if that would be enough to like kick Halloween out, which would be unfortunate, obviously. So he, I guess, watches them for a bit. Then he texts Hex and asks who his stylist is, because this is like a common theme of how hot he finds Hex's clothes and his like waist jackets and stuff. And he says because he needs to give his stylist a stern talking to. And he sees Hex take out his phone and smile, and then says that he styles himself, he texts back, and that he, like, Coal can't give him a stern talking to because he's the one that called Hex daddy. And they kind of tease each other back and forth a bit, and Hex tells him he's learned a lot about his Christmas decor and daddy kink. And Coal is just like, no, I know I have daddy issues, but I will not be calling you that. And he just says, we'll see.
I love it.
Which I also love. So then Coal like opens the door and asks if they're done. And they come in, Iris and Hex, and like Hex and Coal are both blushing. And Iris is just there like, okay. But there's a bunch of people around, so they can't really do anything about it. So Hex texts Coal to say he doesn't care what he calls him as long as he moans a little when he says it. Woo. And Coal is just dying at that. And Iris is like, are you all right? So he kind of just like has to pull himself together. So Coal then is like, you guys should come with me. And Iris is like, why? And he's like, I'll explain it all later. Plausible deniability. Like, okay. So everybody's gone from the hallway now, and like he pulls Hex to him by the waist and starts like warming him up because Hex is freezing. And Hex just says thank you, and Coal says, don't thank me yet, because he's deciding how to get him back for the text messages. And he says next time they're at an event, he's going to text him something raunchy.
Woo!
Right? So they get to the route planning department, and Coal knocks on the door, and like dread starts to rise over like the last time he tried to do something and he went to a different department. It was during his training and he fucked everything up. But then while they're waiting, he teases Hex about like leaving here and going back to Hex's room. And Hex is just like, no, don't jeopardize your responsibilities for me. And he's like, I was kind of joking, but okay. But it makes Coal think then that like Hex isn't planning to stick around. Like he's trying to like, I guess, warn Coal, or at least Coal feels like he's trying to warn him that he's not going to stick around. Like he's obviously going to put Halloween above him. So like he's telling Coal not to choose him. And then he's also feeling shitty because like last time he was in training, he fucked it all up. So then the door opens and Coal just says he's here to get a feel for how things work. And he actually recognizes the guy at the door and says, oh, you're Lucas from the stables. And like they have a full-on joke and like thing about how Coal and Chris used to swindle sleigh wax from Lucas, and they would like put it on the bottom of their sleighs, and they ended up like smashing into a wall and breaking it. So it's another example of like Coal knows everybody, and treats them well and remembers their names, which is just super impressive because I'm like so bad at names. So Lucas is like, yeah, come on in, because Coal was kind of like, he could completely refuse me and turn me away. But he then asks if it's okay that they're there. And Lucas is like, yeah, we've actually been expecting you for a while. Like, you're the future of this holiday. And Cole kind of just realizes that, like, nobody ever realized that it was him who fucked up with Nukoa, and his dad just covered it up, so even the people who work here didn't realize it was him. So they all likely just expected him to keep training, and were probably still asking his dad about his training, but he just didn't. And he's like, well, why didn't his dad say anything? So they go into the room and there's a giant globe, and he thinks his dad first showed him this and told him they were the people who needed them, and one day it will be his job to make them happy. So I think we got that memory before. But he kind of wonders if his dad would have ever actually let him help if he didn't storm into the office. And he's kind of wondering, like, what his dad is keeping, like, what else? Like, is his dad purposely trying to keep him away from all of this stuff? Like, what is going on? So Hex notices a change and asks if he's okay. And he says he's not sure his dad wants him to take on any responsibilities. And he says he doesn't want him learning, questioning things. And then Cole thinks again, like, I guess he says he's wondering what the people of the North Pole actually think of him. And Lucas tells them a bit about the globe and how it, like, tracks who gets gifts in the cheer. And, like, Iris knows that Cole is here for some other reason, so she kind of distracts Lucas with, like, talking about how Easter has something similar. She's a good friend. And Hex moves in and starts talking to Cole. And so Cole has said, like, he doesn't know what the people of the North Pole think of him. And Hex says, like, they love him. And he's like, you obviously care about them. And they pick up on it. And Cole's like, well, no, that's just the staff. Like, they have to like me because they, like, live here and it's their job. But he's like, what about the other people? He's like, the ones that my dad is manipulating. And Hex asks, like, when's the last time you actually spoke to somebody in the city? And Cole thinks about it, but he just says never. But, like, he needs to. And Hex is like, I can help with that. He's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you need to get out of here without being seen. And I'm the Prince of Mischief.
Yeah. He's got a lot to bring to the situation.
Right?
So, the plan is that Nick is going to go get the addresses while Iris and Hex distract Lucas, this Lucas fellow.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he's sort of, like, getting the ambiance of this section, whatever you want to call them. And, like, he just...
Department.
Yeah, department. And he just feels like... He just feels like he should have been around years ago. Because, like, he actually does enjoy learning about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me think that, like, dude, you're so self-depreciating, but anybody could see that, like, this is what you're meant to do. Like, he doesn't think it's a chore. So...
Yeah.
And then he remembers, like... he remembers what Hex said about them just, like, giving a bit of joy to help people get through all the shit that they have to deal with. And, like, Nick/Cole seeing the workers explain everything makes him actually believe it because they are so happy with their jobs. Which I'm just sort of like, okay, dude, whatever, but fine. And he says that it feels different from his staged training. Because there, like, everyone was really clinical and tense. And I'm pretty sure, like, Santa was there. And they definitely had, like, reporters and stuff there, too.
Yeah, I think the whole point was that reporters were there.
So, he said that, like, it was definitely different. And, like, I imagine that that's because those people are not used to, like, having cameras everywhere. And they're, like, being clinical and detached because they don't really know how to act in front of the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And in front of their boss. So he thinks that, like, the version of his dad in his head may not be who he really is. And I'm thinking, like, is this the villain version of his dad in his head? Or is this the childhood version of his dad in his head? I don't know which version we're referencing here.
I think he's talking, because he, like, in my scene, he had the memory of his dad bringing him to see the globe. So I think he's talking about I assume, the version where he was a nice guy.
See, I took it the other way. Because he said that he thinks that the version of his dad that's in his head may not be who he really is, but he isn't wrong. Like, he said his dad's not wrong. That it's their job to make the world happy.
Yeah.
So that's sort of why I was thinking, like, this evil sort of dad that he's built up in his head might not be who he is because he isn't wrong. Like, he's almost trying to say that, like, he's doing the wrong thing, but not necessarily for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So he thinks that, like, he's starting to believe now that, oh, well, maybe what we do is good enough. Like, maybe it is enough. Because before, it was like, we never do enough. What we do doesn't solve world hunger, so it's bad. So now he's finally starting to be like, oh, maybe it is enough.
Yeah.
So obviously he gets the list, and he goes back. They all go back to Nick's room, like him and Hex and Iris, and like his head is spinning, because I guess he's just feeling overwhelmed. By, I guess, all of his feelings about his holiday and all this stuff. And, like, it's a really cute little moment, actually. Like, he flops on his bed and, like, his eyes are closed. And he can feel Hex sit next to him. And he automatically knows that it's him. So he just, like, snuggles in, like, to the crook of his neck. And just, like, needs a few minutes to, like, breathe.
Sweet.
And Iris is just, like, watching them snuggle. And is like, what's going on? Because, like, they didn't tell her what this was all about. She just went because she's their friend. So she was like, dude, what's going on? I want to know. And he's like, oh, we shouldn't tell you and all this stuff. And she's like, I'm not just Easter. I'm your friend and I want to help. But he's kind of like, oh, I don't really want to involve her. But he then goes ahead and he caves and tells her anyway. Yeah. Because he knows that his plan is going to affect her. So he tells her everything. And she is super shocked, obviously, that they're siphoning joy and essentially creating this, like, joy tariff or tithe. And so, like, she's obviously shocked, but he asks, he's like, do you think your dad would join the collective? Like, would he accept this? Yeah. And, like, she's pretty shaken, but at the same time, she wants to help, and she wants him to do it. And she's like, yeah, I do think my dad would come alongside. Then Iris asks, I think probably my favorite question of this section. And it's a complete, like, I want to say it's a girl thing to ask, but, like, I don't want to be sexist, but I mean, like, it's very, like, I find women are too often put in the role of the mental load. Like, I don't know if you've read a lot about or heard a lot about the mental load, especially from parents. The woman is the one that has to make all the appointments and remember all the activities and remember all the parties and make all the play dates and, like, all that stuff. So even though the dad, and again, this is just what society is saying. This isn't necessarily true for everybody. Yeah. But the norm is that the woman is doing all of that, and the man might be physically present 50% of the time, or, like, more than that, like, and doing shared parenting and being there and being present.
But the woman has to make the list for him to know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even come up with, like, the activities that he needs to do himself. Like, in a household, you can look and see something's dirty. You don't need the woman to say, Can you clean that? And that is, like, what I epitomize as the mental load. Is like, having to ask somebody to do something that you see with your eyes when it's so much easier to just do it yourself, that, like, you take on everything because you're just like, it's just, I'd rather not get into this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like the mental load. So in my brain, this is Iris's version of the mental load. Because they're all talking about how they're going to send these other holidays, these invitations to come to this, like, ball on Christmas Eve to, like, try and mend fences or whatever. And Iris just asked the best question. She's like, how are they going to RSVP? Like, how are you going to know they're coming? And it was just hilarious because the guys, so Chris is also, I think he must have been waiting for Nick in the room.
Yeah.
Because he's there and he's just like, and Nick's also like, Hex might.
They're just like, they'll show up.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not,
No.
you can't count
Legit.
us. What?
They just were like, they'll just come, it's fine. So, but like, so Iris is like, no, you can't do that. You need to give them an opportunity to RSVP. The problem is, Nick and Chris cannot use magic because their dad has like a track on their magic because it's Christmas magic. And they're like, well, we can't just get them to send it back to the palace because our dad would very easily get it and know what they're up to.
Yeah.
So like, what's the only option? Really, it's to ask them to send RSVP by magic to Nick and Chris. But they feel bad asking for that because their magic is limited. Because they're being tithed. And so it's like asking, like, it's like asking the homeless person who just found a $20 bill. I mean, I can make things better, but you gotta give me that 20 first. You know, it's just sort of like, and I'm not trying to demean, I'm not, I'm not trying to make light. That's just the first thing I thought of. So, like, they don't want to ask these people for magic when they know that it's restricted and limited.
But it's their only choice, they feel.
It's
well, and they weren't even going to do anything before, so.
Yeah. And then they realize that they're just really bad at all this diplomatic shit. And their dad probably orchestrated it that way. Like, this is what they're coming to realize. Like, not only are they bad at it, but their dad probably made them bad at it so that they would have to rely on him for longer. Or maybe ever.
Yeah, and I think, like, just shortly ago is when Cole was kind of putting that together when he was like, hey, I enjoy this, but also, why did my dad keep me from this? And, like, is that intentional? And you're like, yes, obviously, it's fucking intentional.
Yeah. So, I guess Chris is, like, writing the letters, and they have to figure out how to mail them, because, again, the guys can't use their magic, and while Hex could use his magic, or Iris could use her magic to send the letters, I feel like, you can sense other people's magic?
Well, their dad can sense their magic.
Yeah.
Because it's his magic.
Yes.
But I don't know why the other two can't.
Well, no, so what I'm saying is I'm assuming that the reason they don't want Iris or Hex to send the letters by magic is because they don't want the holidays receiving them to feel other magic.
Oh.
And maybe not take it seriously.
Maybe.
It's really the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, or their parents would find out. Like, obviously, if Neo would feel, Neo is Easter dad, would feel if Iris sent it, and he'd be like, why did you send mail to these guys? So, like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, the plan is, because they apparently can't send the letters by magic, they plan to sneak into North Pole City to mail them. Like, traditional mail. And, again, Nick and Chris can't use magic without their dad finding out. So, Hex just is like, problems, because they're talking about, like, well, how are we gonna sneak out? And Hex is like, very easily, and just, like, magic opens a portal. And, like, every other holiday, they have to use some sort of, like, token and, like, throw it in order to create a portal. Hex doesn't need that. Hex can just, like, swing his hand or snap his fingers or whatever he does, and then the portal is just there. And it's, like, all dark and ripply.
I love it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, I think it was last week you were like, maybe he uses a candy.
Yeah. I'm like, a candy corn, throw it.
And I loved it.
But no, turns out he doesn't need any sort of token. He just can
Which
do
I
it.
guess is fair because Halloween is like mischief and spooky and sneaky and boo.
Yeah. And boo. Sneaky and boo. And like, I guess Nick is sort of like, oh my god, you're amazing. And then like...
Of course. He could do anything and Nick would say that.
Nick is like turned on at the drop of a hat. Like literally, the Hex could like bend over and pick a piece of lint off the floor and Nick would be like, ooh. He'd be turned on. But he's turned on by this like display of power, I guess, and like the fact that he doesn't need a token. And he's like, ooh. So he like leans him against a wall and is like, ooh. But then he's like, that's how you escaped in the alley that night. And Hex is just sort of like, yeah. So there's like some teasing and like some sexy talk. There's a lot of that in this section.
Yeah.
So I guess the flirting ceases and Hex tells them, luckily, part of his magic, because Halloween is all mischievous, part of the magic that he has is while they're gone, when they've snuck through the portal, his magic, like anybody that comes looking for them will suddenly turn around and go the opposite way. Like just, it'll divert people. So like anybody, they'll be able to sneak out without people noticing that they're gone.
It's like Hogwarts.
It is like Hogwarts, yes. Just like Hogwarts.
Yes.
So obviously there's more hotness talk and teasing at that revelation. And then Nick just pipes up afterwards. He's like, by the way, after we mail the letters, I want to ask the people what they think of us. And it's just sort of out of the blue, but he really wants to know what their citizens think of them and of their holiday.
Yeah.
Because he has no idea. He hasn't read any of the tabloids in ages. He doesn't talk to regular people in his land.
I'm not sure tabloids would help necessarily either, but
So, anyway, so he's like, I want to talk to people. And then they're all like, yeah, except you're the Crown Prince of Christmas, so they're probably not going to be honest with you. So he's just like, I'll solve that. And he hunts through his closet and gets a whole bunch of, like, normal wear and, like, bundles them all up. Like, they're wearing hats and coats and sunglasses to sort of hide their identities. And, like, Iris and Chris are sort of bewildered by this, like, new serious Nick. And they're like, we don't know if we can get behind this. So they use Hex's portal. And they head to town. And they sort of get this real sense of joy over Christmas from all the people. So, like, the town really goes, like, wild for Christmas.
Yeah.
And they realize that, like, this is how Christmas is supposed to feel. It's not this, like, stuffy, overdone, like, event after event with, you know, paparazzi and press and everything like that, and it's all stuffy and, like, formal. Like, it's supposed to feel like this. So, I guess they show up in, like, the town square, maybe, and, like, there are all these booths selling things and doing Christmassy activities, and one of the activities is cookie decorating. So they go to this cookie decorating area.
Yeah, it's interesting that this is, I'm assuming it's outdoors in the freezing cold.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it seems
It is
like.
what it
It's
seems like.
weird.
Unless it's, like, tented with heaters.
Yeah, maybe.
So they go to this table to decorate cookies and just, like, enjoy all the festivities around. And Nick realizes he has never enjoyed Christmas for the sake of Christmas, without it being this, like, performance for the press. And I'm thinking, like, even when he was little and his dad wasn't Santa?
I guess we don't really know if his dad was ever not Santa.
Well, he says it earlier in the book. When his dad took him to
But
the
how
globe,
young-
his grandpa was still Santa.
How young would he have been?
I don't know. His mom left when he was 8.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like...
Had to have been younger. 5, 6?
Yeah. I don't remember anything before 12, so I wouldn't be able to... I can't empathize.
You don't remember anything before the age of 12?
I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I don't remember a lot.
That makes sense, I guess. So, they're sitting decorating cookies, and he just starts eavesdropping on the people nearby, also sitting at the table. And he's trying to figure out a way to, like, ask these randos about himself.
Yeah.
And so, I guess he's eavesdropping, and turns out that they're talking about how the tabloid The Christmas Inquiry has a vote going on to see who Iris should marry. So, like, he's already annoyed because in his mind, she's a person. She gets to make a say, and they're, like, voting on it as if she's not or doesn't. So he doesn't like that. But he does manage to, like, jump into the conversation. And, like, he does learn that people don't seem to hate any of their family. And, like, just, they don't really seem that bothered. But I guess somebody does pipe up that they don't... I guess Nick sort of says, oh, and you don't think any of those pictures that they take are staged? And they're like, no.
Questions are so obvious.
Yeah, but they're like, no, look at those smiles. Those are real smiles. So they don't think the pictures that they take are staged. And then someone else pipes up, yeah, but, like, you know, this Nick guy has sort of gotten boring. We want, like, the scandalous guy back. Like, where's the guy that used to break all the rules? We want him back. So, like, they don't really see the royals as people. They see them as, like, I guess, entertainment and news.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, is when you're a regular person, it's valid. I'm not a royal, and I talk about royal people every once in a while. Not all the time. But every once in a while, sure, we talk about what they're up to, or, like, what famous people are doing, right? Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's just a human condition.
Yeah. It's also, yeah. It's not surprising, and it's very easy to just not see them as people when clearly they are. And, like, I don't get on social media and bitch out celebrities, but many people do, and it's just wild to see when you're like, that's just one singular person.
Yeah. So they also sort of, like, mention that they don't think that, I guess they mention that, like, they don't think Nick is very trustworthy. And then they're sort of like, unlike the current Santa. And it just, like, they imply that they all really love Santa.
Which sounds like it could be a future issue.
Yeah. And they don't... I guess Nick also then sort of is like, well, do you think he would... He makes some sort of a suggestion. And they're all like, no, we don't think he would do anything bad. So, like, they really think, like, the sun shines out of his ass, essentially.
Yeah.
But, like, again, that is the image he has crafted through all of this press and everything like that. Like, he has worked very hard to make his image the way it is.
Yeah. And to make, I guess, Nick look untrustworthy now, and so I think he's manipulating how his children look too, and, like, nobody mentions Chris
at all
in any way, and that I think that's also intentional on his part. So.
Yeah, it's definitely telling that, like, Chris is just left to the wayside. They only talk about Santa and Nick.
Yeah.
So obviously Nick is like really upset at oh my god, words, at his realizations. Like, he is hearing all of this and realizing what his dad has been doing, and he's spiraling. But, like, Hex sort of, like, I guess sees that he's spiraling.
Because he sees everything.
Yeah. And just reassures him that it's okay to care what the people think about him, and that he is suited to be Santa because he's funny and he does like spreading joy, so, like, he is meant for that job. And essentially, like, just, you know, he's just sort of saying, like, don't take it, you know, don't think that you're not worthy, because you are.
Yeah.
So Nick realizes then that he's let his father control the narrative for so long about him, and his father just likes it that way because it leaves him in control. So, Hex just reassures him that they will fix everything. And and Nick, like, Nick just asks, like, how do you have so much conviction? Like, you're sure about everything. But Hex just tells him, like, can I tell you a secret? He was like, it's all a facade. He says, I project that belief until it works out that way. So essentially he has belief, and therefore it just is.
Yeah, it's like fake it till you make it.
So he asks Nick then for a secret, because he's like, can I tell you a secret? It's all a facade. Now you owe me a secret. And Nick is sort of like, of course, I'm an open book. You can ask me anything. And what he asked was actually, I thought it was actually a really good question. He asked him, like, why do you have no confidence? And he was like, you're smart and you're capable, and it just doesn't make sense. And, like, they're still here, like, making cookies.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a shit ton of people around enjoying the festivities. So, like, it's just really awkward, to be honest. So, I guess Hex is just sort of like, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me that you are someone so smart and so, like, funny and, like, kind and, like, just listing off all the amazing things about him. And Nick just says, like, I'll tell you why. It's because I'm not the pillar. And he says, like, my brother is the caretaker who took over after my mom left, and he's been the serious one. He's been the caretaker. I've always been the funny screw-up, which is sort of unfortunate.
Yeah.
And then he tells Hex about New Koa and says, like, you remember that thing from a couple years ago? Well, that was all me. And he thought Hex would be, like, horrified. But he's actually quite calm, and he takes Nick's hand and he asks, like, why did you do that? And Nick is just sort of like, nobody has ever asked me that. Like, everybody always reminds him of, like, or do you realize what you could have done? Or, like, or, you know, you could have ruined everything and all this stuff. But no one has ever actually sat him down and been like, why?
Mm-hmm.
So he says that he just sort of tells him, like, it's because of this letter that he keeps referring back to in his mind.
Yeah.
And we finally, I guess, get the whole letter. And it's a little child asking Santa for some money for his mom because his dad left and isn't coming back. And he doesn't want his mom to stress about money and doesn't want to have to rely on him since he's not coming back. And apparently all the kids at school make fun of this kid for still believing in Santa. But he does believe. And the kid just says, like, I would trade all of my toys if Santa would just help. And it's very heartbreaking, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Nick just tells Hex that there are thousands of letters like that. And he was like, I had to do something. And Hex tells him, like, he knows that what he did it to help. But, like, I also do enjoy that he didn't sort of, he doesn't sugarcoat it either. Because he was like, he says, like, I understand you wanted to help, and he was like, I cannot imagine anybody reading that letter and not wanting to do something. But he also says that, like, I know you did it, and I know you had good intentions, but you also need to consider ramifications. But, like, he's like, I know you're learning from your mistakes, and you're trying. And that's what the holidays need. Like, those types of leaders.
Yeah.
So, like, Nick just feels unworthy of Hex's praise. And he's sort of ready to refute it. But then he also is like, this is a guy who, in his mind, doesn't say much. Like, in Nick's mind, he doesn't say much. And he just sort of says, like, because he doesn't say much, he knows that whatever he does say, he means it and says it with intention.
Yeah.
So, like,
I get that.
I guess he's saying, like, he knows that, like, he's telling him the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that moment sort of makes him feel worthy. Because he knows that Hex wouldn't say it if he didn't believe it. So, they kiss. And, like, even though there are people around, they're kissing anyway. But, like, no one knows who they are at this point, so it's not the end of the world.
Which is wild. You'd think you'd just know. But okay. Sure. Sure.
So, he decides to, like, open up even more at the cookie table. I guess if you want to have a serious heart-to-heart, make cookies while you do it. So he tells Hex about a little bit more about his mom. That she left when Nick was 8 and Chris was 7. And he just sort of says that, like, he doesn't think that Joy... I guess after that happened, he feels like Joy isn't enough. Because Joy did not stop his mom from leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Which is sort of heartbreaking.
Yeah, and it really, I guess, makes the letter even more poignant because it's like he empathized so much with the kid.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
I can see why he spiraled into like Joy didn't make her not leave and like I couldn't even help this kid and like, you know.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nick is, like, sort of starting to believe now that maybe Joy is enough, and it's all because of Hex. So, like, okay. Not but, like, of course, he's starting to believe it.
Yeah, I do appreciate that it took longer than just nothing, but it is one of those, like, they're healed by a man.
Yeah. So... He sort of, like, Nick sort of, like, expands on Hex's idea that, like, they're there to spread joy so that people can endure the terrible things. But he also says that, like, we're not just stewards of our holiday. We deserve joy, too.
Mm-hmm.
And Hex reassures Nick that, like, everything will work out. And Nick's like, even though my dad is threatening Halloween and you're being forced to be here. And Hex is like, well, yeah, it will all work out because that's what brought them together. And then they kiss again. And that's sort of the end of their day, we'll say. Yeah. So the next scene, it has the King Claus, asking the quote-unquote kids... So asking Nick what they did that day at dinner. So they're all at this, like, formal, stuffy dinner. Mm-hmm. And I guess Hex is just sort of like... He just says that, like, oh, I had to formalize or finalize my, like, classes or something like that. But he thinks to himself that, really, he asked a few more people... what they thought of the king, and, like, everybody believes that his dad, like, quote-unquote, shits tinsel. Which is hilarious. And so, like, the dad has succeeded in making everybody believe that Christmas is the best holiday, but also that he is the best Santa. So, like, it's...
Of course.
I don't understand how we're on week 3. We have 1 week left. We've got, like, what, 60-ish pages left? I don't understand how everything is gonna get solved.
I told you this.
I know, you did. And I do not see a solution.
Like, honestly, I've read your part for next week, and the solution is barely there. So, let me tell you, the last eighth of the book.
So, Nick and Hex, like, flirt via text across the table. And obviously he's wearing another one of those corset vests, and it makes Nick think of, like, bad things. And, like, he texts...
Bad.
Yes, he texts Hex a fantasy, and, like, that obviously embarrasses him and makes him turn red. Hex, I mean.
Which I think was payback. He said he was going to pay him back for making him look stupid in the hallway earlier.
Yeah. So, Hex turns red, and he's, like, embarrassed, and, like, Nick loves it. And then he looks around and sees how soulless the dinner is. So, like, there's a bunch of press there, there's nobles there. Apparently it's some noble, like, some lord's birthday. And they're like, man, this is shit. Essentially, yeah. Right? So, Nick is just sort of like, this doesn't have any of the joy from town. So, I'm going to try and bring some of the joy back. And he decides he's going to get everybody out of their chairs. Indy needs more dry. So, he gets everyone out of the dining room, and he's like, we have a special surprise for you. And he brings everyone to the theater room. Like, they have a movie theater room. Mm-hmm. And, like, his dad is suspicious, but obviously Nick is, like, talking to everybody, so it's not like his dad cannot go along with it.
Yeah.
So Nick decides to show a Christmas movie to bring back some joy, because that's what Christmas movies do. But he, like, has almost never watched one before. He watched Rudolph as a small child. So he's like, maybe I could put that on. And I think there was another option, and Iris was like, nope. Oh, it was Rudolph, because she was like, nope, that one's misogynistic.
Yeah.
And then none of them have any idea what to put on. So Hex is like, move over, I got this. And he puts on The Christmas Prince.
Which I'm pretty sure is a Hallmark movie.
No, it is a Netflix. I'm pretty sure it's a Netflix special.
Oh.
It's one of those Netflix movies that's designed to be like a Hallmark movie.
Okay.
I don't even remember what The Christmas Prince is about. Oh, no, I do know what it's about. Never mind. I remember.
I can't imagine sitting down and watching all three of them, but...
No. So, the fact that Hex has chosen The Christmas Prince opens up this can of worms. Because... Christmas Prince.
Yes,
Nick.
Makes sense. I understand.
So, like, they're like, how do you even know about this movie? And he's like, has to admit that, you know, he has brothers and they do seem to like certain aspects of your holiday. And so, like, yeah, he's essentially, he's had to admit to the group as they tease him that he likes Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, there's a whole lot of teasing. It's like, you like me. You like my holiday. And Iris... I don't understand this bit. Iris goes to get the popcorn, and apparently she seems upset. But nobody goes to talk to her. And Nick's just thinking in his head, I'll talk to her later.
I think he's like, oh, she doesn't like seeing see it really doesn't make sense to me. But he's like, oh, she doesn't believe in happily ever after, so she doesn't like seeing people happy. And I'm like, your best friend doesn't want you to be happy. Is that what we're going with here? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's silly. Anyway, so then Chris goes to get the cake because as he ushered them all out of the dining room, he heard some guy goes, "But what about my cake?"
Because it's his
birthday. So Nick was like, "Oh, I suppose we should go get that cake." So Chris is like, "I'll go get it." So he goes to get the cake. Actually, what he does is he goes to get a servant to go get the cake.
Yes, of course.
They're princes.
They can't get cakes themselves.
Yeah. So, obviously, while they're gone, Nick and Hex have, like, more cute moments where Nick is like, you like me, you like my holiday, and says, like, oh my god, do you have a crush on me? Because he's chosen the Christmas prince. So he's like, oh my god, I'm a Christmas prince, do you have a crush on me? And I guess he's like, oh my god, in the alley, you had a crush on me. And Hex is like, no, I didn't. And he's like, you obviously didn't even know I existed, so you obviously didn't have a thing for me. And Nick just says, like, no, immediately. As soon as I met you, I wanted you. And I was interested in you. Like, even before I knew who you were, I wanted you. Or, I guess he said I was interested in you. Like, he made it seem like it was more than just physical. But, like, from a lot of what I've seen, it's a lot of physical.
Makes sense.
So, I guess, like, there's some more banter and discussion on, like, Christmas movies and, like, how Christmas movie marathons and those sorts of things. So Nick and Hex make plans for a movie marathon. And Hex is like, but I'm leaving soon. And Nick's like, oh, don't worry, we'll make time. And then the king just gives them the stare down. Because they're too close and too clingy and whatever. They're just being too weird.
They're too cute.
Yeah. So then they have to go sit with Chris and Iris. And they're like all four of them squished on a love seat together. So it's like, okay. And they watch the movie. And apparently like 20 minutes into the movie, people start laughing and like, it's a good time. And then the first movie's over. And then the second one starts. And sort of Nick was like, oh, I thought everyone would get up to leave. But nobody left. And so then they end up watching all 3 movies. And I'm like, guys, you were at dinner. And now you're watching 3 movies? Like, how late is it?
Way too late.
I would be asleep.
100%.
Anyway, I guess after all 3 movies are over, everybody is like, enlivened and a bit more joyful, and a reporter goes up to the king and says like, that was an awesome like different type of activity, and it was like a really great type of event, and he was like, I'm hoping there'll be more of those. And I guess Santa just says, we'll see about that, like not in a menacey way, but just no, oh, we'll see.
Yeah.
So
he's still not convinced.
Yeah. But, like, he doesn't stay and talk to Nick or anything like that. He just leaves. Mm-hmm. So, like, everybody leaves. Chris, Hex, and Nick help the staff clean up. Thank God. Until it's after midnight. And then Chris leaves. No, he doesn't. That's a lie. Nick... So, like, the 3 of them clean up. Nick asks Hex, then, to stay with him tonight. Ooh. And Hex sort of isn't sure. He's like, I don't know, like, it's pretty late. And I guess he's worried about staying all night and, like, being discovered in the morning. Maybe? I don't know. He just says, like...
I think he's worried because he's realized, like, how little time they have left together, and he's kind of trying to make some distance.
I guess.
But, yeah.
Well, so, anyway, Hex is worried about, like, staying all night. He's like, the later I'm there, the later I'm there, and, he's just like, maybe I shouldn't. And that sends Nick into a tizzy in his brain. Because he's like, oh, shit. Like, he's leaving in a week and a half. He was always gonna leave. And, like, he's leaving me, and it's, you know, he's just like, he's spiraling because he doesn't want him to leave, but he knows that he was always going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess whatever Nick says, I guess, persuades him, because Hex is like, okay, but just tonight. But Nick's like, oh no, I'm getting every night. If I have my way, like, he'll be in bed with me every single night until he has to go. So they go back to his room, and I guess they walk Chris, like, to his room first and make sure he gets all the way in there and closes the door before they go into his room. And they get just right to business. They're just, like, immediately making out. And Nick wants to, like, slow down, but Hex is the one actually urging him on, and starts, like, taking his vest off to, like, because Nick's like, no, we shouldn't. And Hex is like, we should.
Talk for an hour about consent.
Yeah. And, like, literally, Hex is like, no, we should. And the only way he can encourage Nick is by stripping his own clothes off. And then Nick's like, oh my god, naked body, I can't. Like, he goes wild. And, like, he just says that he doesn't want to ask Hex. Oh my god. He doesn't want Hex to ask for this. Because he's sort of worried that Nick is sort of worried he'll take advantage. Because, like, they have had an emotional day. They've had a long day. And it is late. And I'm like, then why did you invite him back to your room? Like... Yeah.
What did you think was going to happen?
But, like, Hex does convince him that, like, I want this real bad. Let's go for it. So, like, they take each other's shirts off, and, like, they're going crazy. And Nick says he wants to taste Hex everywhere, so he starts unbuttoning his pants, and he, like, ends up taking off all of his bottom layers. And then Hex is naked in his bed, and he's freaking out that, oh my god, he's naked in my bed. And, like, he trails kisses everywhere, and then he reaches the peen. And he gives him a BJ for, like, 20 seconds. And he sees, like, how much Hex likes it, and asks if he's ever had that happen before. Like, has anyone ever done that? And Hex says no. And he says he's given but never received. And then all of a sudden, Nick needs to have this, like, conversation right in the... Can you imagine somebody stopping mid-sex to be like, we need to unpack this? How do you feel?
I would leave. I would create a portal and put my naked body through it.
I'm going now.
Yeah.
So, like, Nick's, like, wants to know more about it because he's appalled that someone took but didn't reciprocate. And, like, Hex doesn't want to talk about it, but Nick's like, no, we need to. I want to know everything about you. So, Hex is like, oh, fine. And he tells him that it happened, like, after his sister died. And I don't know if it was, like, right after the funeral.
It seems like it. It seems really bad.
So, like, he says that after, like, the funeral, the guy that she had been dating and Hex fooled around. And, like, Hex gave the guy a BJ, but the guy didn't give him one back. And, like, he's pissed that Nick sort of stopped their sexy time to bring this up. But Nick just tells him, like, it's okay. And, like, the two of you were grieving, so he was like, this doesn't make anything, there's nothing wrong with what you did. But he was like, but the other guy should have reciprocated. So, like, Hex just sort of thought that Nick would be pissed at the scenario and not at the act.
Yeah.
But he's fine with it. He was like, it's fine, but he should have made you, he should have comforted you the way you comforted him.
Yeah. It's a shitty situation that you were both in, and then he kind of made it worse.
So, he gets back to business, and makes Hex come. And then Hex is like, I've never had a BJ before. I've never been with I don't even know if he's been with a girl, but he's never been with another dude before. And he's like, I want you inside me. So, like, he wants to jump right into anal.
Yeah, I don't think he has, because he had just said, like earlier this week that he's only been with one person before.
Okay.
So I assume
that's the one
that
person.
was... Yeah.
Okay, so he's never had sex before, and he's like, anal, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it works. You don't need preparation at all. So I guess Nick is sort of like, whoa, wait, what? And he's like, I wasn't lying. I guess when they were originally fooling around, he said that, like, all I want is to make you feel good. And, like, I'm okay with just that. But Hex is like, no, I really want this. AKA, he really wants him up the bum.
Fair.
So Nick, like, he's like, well, you don't have to tell me twice. And he, like, goes to his side table and, like, hauls out lube and, like, condoms and stuff. And then they make out some more and they touch each other and he preps Hex in the bum.
Fair.
And, like, so it's actually a really interesting scene because, like, they have sex face to face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, like, I guess Hex starts out on top and, like, lowering himself on to Nick and, like, bouncing up and down a little bit.
Yeah.
And, like, then eventually it gets intense, so they swap, and then Nick is on top, but they're still looking at each other. And then they come together, and it brings Nick visions of, like, them living their lives together, and...
My God.
Yeah, it's really like, oh, slow down. And then he just realizes that he's in love with Hex. And that's where we stop.
Fair. Very intense. Very fast.
So yeah. It's very much just like, shit. Like, you're in love with him after, like, has it been a week?
I don't think so, because between school ending and Christmas is less than a week and a half where we are. So I can't, like, obviously it must be different. I don't know, in the state. Like, is it different in the States?
I think mid-December is usual. Like, I remember university ending, like, mid-December.
I can't remember university either, Kristen.
But, like, just think of it this way. So, like, in the States, you've got Thanksgiving the, like, third week of November. Mm-hmm. They're saying, oh, I'm going home for Thanksgiving, and then they go home for Christmas. So, like, there has to be time in between. There's no way that you go home for Thanksgiving, and then you go back to school for a week, and then you're done. Oh,
so you're saying it doesn't make sense either? Is
yes,
that what you're saying? The time. Okay,
I'm saying that, like, 13th to the 14th of December seems correct for it. For that, that's when school to be done. Now, I mean, I will say that there were a couple of courses that I did when I did my education degree that didn't have exams. So our final papers were due right before exams. And then there was a week of exams. So we were finished a week early. So maybe he's like that.
Maybe. But, like, all of his roommates were gone before he left is the thing. So, like... And I just looked up an AI overview of Google is telling me the winter break usually begins on the third Saturday in December, which would have been which is the 21st, which is tomorrow. So where's this week and a half, 2.5 weeks, 3, whatever is that? I'm so confused by this time.
I mean, there's also a weird place called New Koa that doesn't exist. So, like, maybe it's an alternate dimension where maybe December has, like, 45 days.
Well, that is also a good point. There's also, like, this whole place.
So, who knows?
December 19th is when the University of Mexico gets out. So, they've kidnapped Hex, and he's missing his exams. That's really the issue here.
Oh my god. They're gonna make him fail.
But yeah, we don't have to get too caught up in the dates. And who knows? Maybe it's COVID time. Maybe they're doing it all online. Maybe during the day he's doing his exams.
Yep. But yeah, so I guess that's gonna wrap it up for this week. We're leaving off on this timeliney cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm. As we love
Yes.
to do.
So, if you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episode, or if you have any book suggestions for us, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread and coffee.coread on TikTok.
So next week we're going to finish The Nightmare Before Kissmas, and it's going to be chapters 17 to 22, so make sure to follow along, and if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.